Psychic reading on Bill Gates. The first half of, or this video of the first half of the reading will be looking at just the basic patterns within his energy field. I will, immediately following this, make a second video looking more at specific questions going on. So this will be more of just recognizing the general patterns that he has within his life, followed by the second video being more specific about actual situations, just to be clear. So I will start by looking at, I'll do a aura reading, looking at all 7 layers of his aura and the types of energies that are within those layers. Each layer has a different meaning. I'm going to connect with Bill Gates' energy. It's coming in at a purple for me, kind of purple blue actually. Okay. So I'm going to be looking for pictures which are usually symbolic, that kind of represent the general patterns within these areas of his life. So I'm looking first at the first layer, which has to do with safety, security, and survival. And I'm seeing a picture of him picking up a ring, and he's thinking about putting this ring on, but it's like there's something where he's kind of, it's not like he's invested in it emotionally from the heart. It's like he is kind of analyzing it, like very analytical in his way of like putting on this ring and like, oh, if I put it on, then I can take it back off again, maybe, or could I not? And let's see what this is about. What does this mean for him? I just see him looking around. It's like he's trying to gauge everything going on around him. I see him putting this ring on and then like partially putting it on and then taking it off, and then like it's like testing the waters. It's like he doesn't really want to commit. It's very much like there's something very business-like about this. He's really looking around, seeing how it affects his environment when he does this, and like, is it going to work out for him? And it's really, to him, it's really about making things align in his environment. This would be related to work and related to, it's like very mathematical in the way that he's built up this system of his life, of how he's going to be successful on some level, although I'm not seeing it as just being plain successful. It's about security, as this is the first layer, about security. And there's a sense of freedom that he wants. He doesn't want to commit to something that he can't control. It's like he's the type of person to want to be in charge of the levers, to be able to pull the lever and shift everything around and change everything. And so this ring is like, it's a big commitment that it's like he's having trouble with this idea. I'll look a little more at what this ring represents, what this ring is about. Just getting that this has something to do with his commitment to essence, but I'm not really exactly sure what that means. And there's something about barbarianism where it's like he's almost like he feels like a barbarian if he doesn't do this, and he's trying to find some sort of like higher order of some sort, um, to be committed to. So I'm still trying to figure out what this ring is about. It's kind of like just choosing a path that he's going to commit to. It's like he's kind of a jack of all trades, is what's coming through, and he wants to go be able to go this way or that way or this way or that way. And it's like he doesn't want to commit to one way. It's like he wants to be able to like kind of like tear off his mask and be like, oh, I'm actually going that way, doing this instead. And he doesn't want to lose that freedom, but at the same time, it looks like he he knows that his next step is to fully commit to something. It's like you can only like you can go all different directions if you don't commit, but by committing, you're able to go further in one direction. And it's like he knows he wants to. He's kind of like covered this base area, and he wants to go further, and therefore he knows he has to commit to something, and that seems to be hard for him to accept, and it's like he's really not sure about it. And this ring could have to do with being married to someone, but I'm not really specifically seeing it as that. It could be associated with that. However, what I'm really seeing it being more associated with is his career path, and it could all be kind of tied together as one bundle of being married to someone would kind of put him in a certain path in a certain light. Yeah, so I'm going to move that out, that energy, and move on to the next layer and see if this all falls into place and starts to make sense as we look at different patterns that all connect. So the second layer is about emotions, sensuality, and sexuality. It's funny, I'm just seeing him, and it's like something about him reminds me of a frog, like in the, like his emotional. It's just like his mannerisms. It reminds me of a frog, is what's showing up for some reason. Um, so let me see. What is this? What am I seeing here? It's funny. It's similar to the last one where I get this sense that he's like testing the waters, so to speak, and like that's kind of his emotional state. Is it's like very scientific, and it's like in the sense that a frog would kind of like touch something with its hand and kind of feel ooh, like, oh, I don't like that, or I do like that, or kind of testing it out. And it's all like, it's kind of like it's almost like he's not there. It's, I mean, in the sense like he is observing himself testing this out, it's like it doesn't really matter to him. It's like he's kind of like laughing and joking about what he's testing out as he's testing these things out. It's like there's this, the emotional aspect is more so like he's in the observer's seat than he's actually the one experiencing the emotions. Which can be a good thing and a bad thing. Um, so I'm just seeing him, like, everything's just kind of like casual and kind of a joke to him. Like, I'm not really seeing him taking things too seriously in the sense of emotions. And I see him just like, he has no problem and he just kind of lays in bed and falls asleep. Just like with this grin on his face. Because it's just like things, it's just like everything's kind of a joke to him, is basically what I'm getting. And I don't mean that like necessarily in a negative way. I'm not sure what I mean by that, but that's just what's coming through. Um, Something I'm resembling a frog here. It's just a frog keeps coming up. It's just like a frog that just kind of has like this smile to its face, and it's just kind of like, that's how his face kind of looks like. He's kind of got this smile to his face. I don't know. That's what's coming up for the second layer with emotions, sensuality, and sexuality. Um, there's like this detachment, like this cold detachment on on some level within this. I'm saying he does have a fondness, like he's fond towards a woman. I'm seeing, but the way I'm seeing this is it's like he hands her something as like a gift, as like a token, like, this is my appreciation, and it's very endearing. And he's like, "Oh, there you go. Like, oh, isn't that so sweet, you know?" And it is in the moment. Um, but it's like a very casual sort of thing, and it's like his mind is there, and then it's like it doesn't have like a emotional resonance that really impacts him. It's just like kind of like a thing that happens, like a thing that he does, like kind of like, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, but it's not like a routine, like in the sense where it's something that's hard to want to do in the way that it's like work to him. It's actually like he's very happy about doing this. He's smiling about doing all this, and it's funny because it's not like anything is work to him. It's like everything is like this game, like in a positive sense of that, and in the way that I mean, there's a good side and a bad side, but I'm seeing the positive side of it right now is that it's like he doesn't get tangled up in anything that really brings him down, and it's like he has this ability to be in the observer's seat and really just, not get caught up in problems, basically. However, I'm seeing now him looking down, and it's almost like he's embarrassed, is what's coming across here. And it's like he's embarrassed because he's so different in some way emotionally. It's like he knows that these, it's almost like he's cheating, and on some in some way it's like he knows he's kind of like cheating because he's not really playing the same game as everyone else, is what it's coming across as. um, And that would be in the context of feeling the emotions in the way that is normal, because he's so mathematical and intellectual. I just see him being like a frog, and like his hands, like he's like kind of like almost like a magician, but like of logic, if that makes any sense. Is what's coming through. He's not, and he's like tricky. He's like, oh, like I'm like magical with. It's like he has this ability that makes him almost feel magical compared to other people, and it's like he's cheating almost. Is how he doesn't feel guilty about it. If anything, he feels like it's so it's so great. It's almost embarrassing sometimes. Like he's almost embarrassed by his power to be like that. Not in a bad way for him, at least. Looking at this from a neutral perspective, so what could be bad for someone else might, if it's good for him, I'm seeing it as being good. So I'm looking at it from a neutral perspective from his energy. So I'm going to move on to the next layer. The next layer is the third layer of the aura, and this has to do with what people do in life, their willpower, male and female energy. So I'm just seeing a picture of him standing out on the side of a river, or I mean, sorry, a lake. And he's looking down at the lake. He kind of looks like almost as if he was almost depressed, but not really like he's actually depressed, but it's more like he's thinking about stuff, and he's thinking about the things that he has missed or doesn't have, or all the things he's kind of sacrificed. Like he's had to sacrifice a lot in order to be the way that he is, which I think has to do with what I was just reading earlier in the second layer. And it's like this sense of him that yeah, it's like he's made this. It's just like he's made a sacrifice, like lots of sacrifices. Like his whole life is kind of like a sacrifice of his humanity in order to be like. I mean, what my logic is telling me, because of what I know of him, is that he's like a computer genius and whatnot. But that's not what I'm reading. But that's just what I would assume this is about. And so I'm just seeing him looking at his reflection in this water and like throwing a rock into it. And so what does that mean? That means something here. I'm seeing it ripple, like the water ripples, and he sees his reflection as like kind of like different people as the water goes by each ripple. So what does this mean? So it's like he's been able to kind of change his persona, or like change who he is on some level, in order to do the things in life that he has. It's like he's able to almost shift himself, like change who he is in different situations in order to get through society, to be like the ultimate like machine. is is really the energetics that I'm getting. It's a very like machine like is really what's coming up here. And it's like he's able to just like shift into something else in every scenario and take on like a completely different persona. And it's like he really changes, like him at his core being like changes, even though like people, they can take on different personas. There's them at work, there's them at home or whatever, but it's like there's something more like to the core. It's like he doesn't really even have himself. It's like there's like this egg that's like his true being that most people, it kind of expands and goes out, and then there might be layers of it where there's you know things that can shift and change, because that's healthy to be able to adapt your personality on some level to be able to interact with different types of people in different sorts of ways. But for him, it's like that egg is just like at the center, and it's like it hasn't even really, it's like everything's shifting completely to the point where it's there's no like fertile ground for his like core personality to change, because there's so much emphasis on everything else instead of the core personality. So what does this have to do with the third layer? The third layer of doingness, willpower, male and female energy. Yeah, this is about how he does things. Yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to move on to the next layer. Next layer is the fourth layer. This has to do with identity, love, um, your affinity for yourself as well as others. So let's see what comes up. So I'm just seeing a picture of him with, it's like a star comes down, something like a sword I'm seeing, and it's like the star's coming down onto a plate, and it's almost like he is like a server or a cook in a restaurant, and he's like wiping the plate clean, and like the star is on the plate, and he like whoosh, like kind of tosses it over, and like serves it to someone. It's very like showy and kind of like um, like a fancy restaurant server. Trying to see what this means. This is what he's dishing up for humanity. Let's see what this is. What is this? What does this mean? It's like he wants people to be satisfied. I think there's this sense that he's kind of like giving people something to satisfy them, but it's not really necessarily like at a spirit level. It's more just like giving someone their sugar fix. Um, this could be related to technology. That's just my logical mind thinking now. Let's see, what does this mean? He's a show person. He's really putting on a show is what's coming across. He has an identity of being like a on stage sort of, so to speak. And a people pleaser. Again, this kind of has to do with the last layer of being able to shift modes, and just kind of be able to please people on some level, even though it's not necessarily like completely like taking care of someone. It's more just like putting on a show is the idea. making people excited and happy and be like, oh wow, that's cool. So I'm gonna look more at what the star is that he's serving to people. So this definitely, I'm seeing technology and that sort of thing. I'm saying it's like he doesn't really care about the wholesomeness of it. He's more interested in like the show. Something strange about this. I'm seeing him with like a fork and a knife, like he's gonna eat food now. Like he's licking his lips, like um, like he's getting paid. It's almost like I'm seeing him hooking people's brains up to these cords and like plugging them in to a machine. Basically, is what the best way of describing what I'm perceiving is. And it's like he's eating. It's like he's feeding off of that is the gist of what's coming through, and that's kind of more of a metaphor. Um, like in the sense people are connecting to becoming like part of the technology on some level, like everybody's connected to their technology, and he's like really feeding off of that. Um, there's something unconscious about this too. It's like it's almost like frying people's brains. Is what I'm saying. So again, this has to do with his identity. So let's see, how does this all connect to his identity? He's pleased. He's just like he's very pleased to see all of this. He's very proud. He's like, I've reached the top. Is basically what he's saying. Like he's at the very top. Um, he's like, oh, look at what I've done. That's like literally how I see him. He's like, look at me. Look what look. Tilting his head. Like, it's interesting. Okay, moving on to the next layer. Next layer is the fifth layer. That's where I'm at, the fifth layer. Fifth layer has to do with communication. So I'm seeing him communicating in a way where he's kind of like almost over exaggerating his words. It's like he's like, oh, really? Like talking like that. It's like it's kind of like that whole like everything's a game type of energy. As I was reading, I think in the first layer, almost like he's playing with people on some level, not necessarily like in a good way or a bad way. It's not like he's messing with people. Although I actually do see he is kind of messing with people on some level, but it's like in a like almost humorous. There's a lot of humor involved in it. He's like, oh, like fascinating. Tell me more. Like in this kind of weird sort of way. And he's smiling, he's grinning about it. He's like always grinning, and or at least that's like the energy that I'm seeing within him. Like he's just always like got this like grin, like hey, like almost mischievous. But it's like a boy genius, like Dexter, kind of like, I got this type of. Actually, no, it's not quite like that. Now that I say that out loud, that's not really exactly what it is. It's not that he's like, oh, I got this. It's not that he's got it. That's not what this is about. I'm not saying he doesn't, but that's not what this is about. So what is this about? This is about him with the levers and being able to pull the levers and kind of like um, control things. Let's see. This again is about the communication. I'm gonna look more at this stuff that's all kind of come up in the second video. For now, I'm just focusing on the general energy of the layers. So what does this have to do with communication? Yeah, he's just kind of sneaky. And it's like I see him kind of getting people to go along with him in a certain way, and then it's like as they're doing it, it kind of becomes self-evident where how they've been kind of like put into this path that it's almost like they've been fooled, but it's not so much like, well, yeah, it is. And I just see him kind of being like kind of like laughing and like his tongue like sticking out, like haha, you know, and his eyes kind of like almost like glimmering, um, like he's so clever. That's the energy. Let's see, is this working for him? There's part of his soul or spirit that wants to be able to be more serious. And it's like he's kind of gotten like this, like the way I perceive it is like higher pitched, like almost like to the point where it's like so high pitched, it's like almost like you can't, like it just like want to calm down. And I'm seeing that like this calming down, kind of like back to like more like what you would like more like male energy as opposed to female energy, which is kind of more like high pitched male. I mean, even just the voice of male versus the female, it's usually lower, you know. And him like coming down and calming down a little bit. I'm seeing that his spirit wants more of that, and he feels a little out of place, and that's going back to the picture where he was looking at the pond and he was looking kind of down and kind of felt not quite right, and like there's something kind of missing. That's what was missing, was this like ability to be more serious, um, like soulful is the best word I can think of, to be less about like winning these games. That's what's coming up, and more so about like his male energy, his like soulfulness is the way that I'm understanding it. So I'm just gonna move on to the next layer. The next layer is the sixth layer. This has to do with clairvoyance, the ability to see other people for who they are, as well as be seen for who you are. Let's see what comes up for him. So I'm seeing him on a Ferris wheel. I believe that's what they're called, with the horses that go in circles. I think that's what that is. Um, at like a circus type of scene, and he's like got his hand above his head. And he's like, and there's something very childlike in this. Like he's a little kid, like at the circus, and he's like a full-grown adult at the same time. So this is interesting. There's something very childlike about this. So what does this have to do with the sixth layer? Okay, so people are watching him, and it's like he has to put on this. Okay, this has to do with what I was just reading too. So it's like he has to put on this role kind of to be seen in a specific way, like with the high pitched sort of like type of thing that just doesn't really feel quite right in his body, but it's what he feels he has to do, and it's like that's the role he's taken on, and so he knows that that's like not really his true identity, but when he knows he's being watched, it's like he just does that, and it's just totally automatic, almost like almost machine-like. Like he doesn't know, or doesn't really feel like there's any other good option. It's like that's just to him that's the only way that works as far as he understands. Um, let's see, why is he doing this? He doesn't feel safe. Otherwise, he thinks, oh, okay, so if he doesn't act like this, he thinks that people are going to like like not literally, but like symbolically, like throw things at him and like boo him off stage, is what I'm seeing. And like he would feel miserable and depressed and just like feel like crap because everybody hates him and is like boo, get out of here. So it's like he has to put on this show to like raise everybody's vibe, is the way he's perceiving it, to like him. So that might not necessarily be the case, but that's how he's seeing it. Anyway, so I'm going to see what is his spiritual truth within this. So when I asked to see his spiritual truth, I just see him laying in bed sleeping. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? His spiritual truth is that he just needs to take a break from being in the spotlight and rest and lay in bed. I see him sucking on his thumb like a child, which is interesting, while he's laying in bed. Um, so it looks like there's some part of his childhood that never really completely developed. Like he never had that space to develop his childhood energies to grow to become more like a full grown man. Um, he's There's like this child energy to him that has to do with pleasing other people and being seen by other people. So what does this have to do with the sixth layer? So he sees these obstacles, but he doesn't really see any way out. It's like he wants out of this, or it's just kind of like a trap that he's in, and he doesn't see any way out. Or it's like almost like he feels like he has to work off the karma of it by going through it. Let's see. Is this true? And no, it's actually the reverse. It's actually that what he's doing is he's stuck in the karma and he's giving that more and more, or it's like he's building up more karma by staying in that role. Because suffering doesn't necessarily improve things. So, anyways, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the last layer. This is the seventh layer. This has to do with connection to spirit, connection to higher self. So I'm seeing him, and he's just kind of like, just like waiting. Like he's just like waiting. Like someday this energy will come down from. I'm seeing it as like the divine universe energy, like coming down, and he's just kind of like waiting, and it's almost like he doesn't think that it's coming down, and he's just like, you know, and it looks like it's kind of creeping down bit by bit, and it's almost like he doesn't know, like it's kind of creeping up behind him, actually. And it's like he's humming this song, looking at his watch. It's like he has time to kill, which is not the case. So this energy is coming down, trying to see what this means for him. There's something terrifying to him about this. Like when it touches him, it's like he got zapped. It's like terrifying. It's not like a healing experience to be touched by the divine energy for him, because he's not ready, and because it's like he's putting it off further. It's like he's trying to put it off more and more and more and more. He's trying to create more and more space between him and the divine, so that he doesn't have to, so that he has more time in between. And it's like he's really caught up in the world, in the realm of doing things. So this, or spiritual energy is, it's like he's just oblivious to it. Or the divine energy, I should say. And it's like he doesn't care. Like he knows